Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at something that might sound a little intimidating at first, but trust me, it's a total game changer when it comes to managing your WordPress site.
Sounds intriguing.
We're going to be talking about WordPress debug mode.
Okay.
And to help us unpack this super useful tool, we're turning to an article from Now Technology Systems, an Australian company that, well, they really know their stuff when it comes to WordPress.
Yeah, they're great.
This article, it was just published back in December 2024, so it's nice and recent.
Awesome.
So, to kick things off, have you ever felt like, I don't know, like you're just kind of fumbling around in the dark when you're trying to, fix some sort of error on your WordPress site?
All the time. It's the worst.
It can be so frustrating.
Yes.
So, where do you even begin?
Exactly.
Well, that's where WordPress debug mode comes in. It's kind of like having, like a detective on your team.
Oh, I like that.
To shine a light on what's going wrong behind the scenes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So instead of just seeing that something's broken, debug mode, it helps you understand, why it's broken.
That's right, yeah.
So it's a built-in WordPress feature that reveals those, behind-the-scenes errors through, detailed messages and warnings.
Yep, exactly.
And this really gives you the power to pinpoint the exact cause of the problem.
That's right, yeah.
So, that sounds incredibly helpful, right?
Oh, for sure.
I'm already feeling a little less intimidated by those, cryptic error messages.
Yeah.
But how does this, detective work? How does it actually play out in practice?
Okay, so imagine you've got this, plugin conflict that's causing your site to just, totally malfunction. And instead of disabling all your plugins, one by one and hoping for the best, debug mode actually tells you, hey, this is the plugin that's causing the issue.
Oh, wow.
And it can even point to the specific line of code causing the conflict.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you can go straight to the source of the problem instead of playing this guessing game.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is a huge time saver.
That time, yeah.
But, I remember the article mentioning something about debug mode not being for, live websites.
Yeah, it's important.
Why is that?
That is super crucial. While debug mode is like your secret weapon for troubleshooting, you don't want to leave it active on a live site. Think of it like leaving the blueprints to your house out in the open.
Uh-oh.
Right. Anyone could potentially use that information for, for bad stuff.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So you'd use it in, a staging environment.
Exactly. A staging environment that's just a safe copy of your website where you can, test and tinker without affecting, the real live version.
Yeah.
Once you fix the issue in staging, then you can go implement the solution on your live site.
So it's like having a dress rehearsal for your website.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready to put on my detective hat and learn how to enable debug mode.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
So imagine you're logged into your website's files.
Yeah.
Using an FTP client or your hosting provider's file manager. You're going to look for a file called wp-config.php.
Okay.
Think of this file as the control panel for your WordPress site. Now, before you even touch this file, what's the golden rule?
Back it up.
Exactly. Always, always, always make a backup of your wp-config.php file before making any changes.
Of course.
You don't want to break anything.
Right.
And then you simply add a line of code that looks like this.
Yeah.
Define WPD debug true. This is like flipping a switch to turn on debug mode.
Oh, okay. So it's just a single line of code.
Yeah, pretty much.
That seems surprisingly simple. The article also mentioned an optional step. Logging errors. What's that all about?
Okay, so think of your debug log as a detective's notebook.
Okay.
Filled with clues to help you solve the mystery of that, broken feature. By adding define WP debug log true to your WP debug log true to your WP debug.php file, you're basically telling WordPress, hey, create a log file where all the errors are neatly recorded. This makes it so much easier to analyze those errors, spot patterns, and, just understand the full story behind the problem.
Oh, okay. So it's like having a detailed timeline of everything that went wrong.
Exactly. It can be invaluable for troubleshooting, especially for those really, really complex errors.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So once you've solved the case and, your website is back to running smoothly, what do? just leave debug mode on.
No. We talked about this, right?
Okay.
We don't want to leave those blueprints out in the open on your live site. As soon as you've resolved the issue, go back into that wp-config.php file and change that line back to define WP debug of the false. It's like turning off the lights when you leave a room.
Good point. Safety first. And the article really emphasized the importance of working in that staging environment whenever possible, just to make sure that any, detective work you're doing, it won't actually affect your live site and its visitors.
For sure. I mean, you wouldn't want to accidentally shut down your, online store
Oh, no.
while you're trying to fix a minor bug.
And that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
So we've talked about what debug mode is, why it's important, how to enable it safely.
Yep.
But what about, the actual errors it can help us solve?
Yeah.
I'm picturing a whole spectrum of, potential website woes.
There's so many things that can go wrong. It's true.
Right.
But debug mode is like a lifesaver for tackling a whole bunch of issues.
Okay.
From simple, syntax errors, which are like typos in your website's code,
Oh, yeah.
all the way to the dreaded white screen of death. Have you heard of that?
Ugh, the white screen of death. I have.
Yeah.
It sounds scary.
It is. It's like hitting a brick wall.
So what exactly causes that?
It's often caused by a fatal error that just prevents your website from loading properly. And debug mode can really help determine if it's due to, a plugin conflict, a theme issue, or something else entirely.
So it helps you identify the culprit behind the blank screen.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about those syntax errors you mentioned? What are those?
So those are usually caused by typos or, incorrect formatting in your website's code. Think of it like a grammatical error in a sentence. It just prevents the code from being understood.
Right. It can't parse it.
Yeah. And debug mode will point you to the exact line of code where that error is occurring.
Oh, that's handy.
So it makes it much easier to fix.
So debug mode really takes the guesswork out of troubleshooting these issues.
Yeah, for sure. It gives you the info you need to, make informed decisions about how to address the issue.
Yeah.
Whether you're fixing it yourself or, working with a developer.
So it's like having a roadmap instead of, wandering around aimlessly in the dark.
I love that analogy. That's perfect.
But, I'm curious, what are some of the more, serious problems that debug mode can help uncover? I'm thinking about things that, maybe aren't immediately obvious, but could be lurking beneath the surface.
Ooh, good question. You're thinking like a true website detective now.
Oh.
Debug mode can reveal issues that might not be causing like a total, meltdown,
Right.
but could be affecting your site's performance or security or even your, search engine rankings.
Okay, now that's getting into some serious territory.
Yeah.
So, what kinds of problems are we talking about here?
Okay, let's say, for example, your website's loading super slow.
Ugh, yeah.
Debug mode can help you pinpoint what's causing it. Maybe it's a plugin that's just really bulky and slowing things down, or a poorly optimized image, or even, a conflict between different scripts running in the background.
So it's not just about fixing errors, but it's also about optimizing my website.
Exactly.
For a better user experience.
For sure. A slow website can lead to higher bounce rates, frustrated visitors, and even lost sales.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, debug mode can help you identify those bottlenecks and, just streamline your site's performance.
I'm really starting to see how powerful debug mode can be.
Yeah.
Are there any other kind of hidden dangers it can help uncover?
Think about security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
While debug mode itself doesn't, fix those issues,
Right.
it can provide valuable clues that point to potential weaknesses.
Okay.
For example, it might reveal outdated plugins or themes that are known to have security flaws.
So it's like having an early warning system for my website.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about being proactive, right?
Right.
By, regularly checking your debug log, you might spot patterns or warnings that indicate a deeper issue lurking beneath the surface, even if it's not, causing any noticeable problems yet.
So debug mode can be valuable for, both troubleshooting and preventative maintenance. It's like having a regular checkup for my website to make sure everything's running smoothly and securely.
Exactly. It empowers you to understand the inner workings of your website.
Yeah.
And, take control of its health and performance.
This is all great information, but let's be honest, reading through lines of code and interpreting error messages, it can be kind of intimidating, especially if you're not a developer.
Right.
So what advice would you give to someone who's, just starting out with debug mode?
That's a really good question. Remember, you don't have to be, a coding expert
Okay.
to benefit from debug mode. Just start by focusing on the basics. enable the debug log and, familiarize yourself with the different types of messages you might encounter.
So don't get overwhelmed by the technical details. Just, dip your toes in and start exploring.
Exactly. And if you encounter an error message that you don't understand, don't panic.
Right.
There's tons of resources available online, including, the WordPress support forums and just countless helpful articles and tutorials.
That's reassuring. It's good to know you don't have to go it alone.
Exactly, yeah. The WordPress community is so supportive. And if you're ever feeling completely lost or unsure about how to proceed, you can always consult with, a professional WordPress developer.
That's a great point. Sometimes it's best to bring in an expert, especially when you're dealing with, like complex issues or potential security vulnerabilities.
For sure, yeah. It's like calling in a specialist when you have a medical concern.
Yeah.
They have the knowledge and experience to diagnose and treat the problem effectively.
So we've talked about the kind of proactive benefits of debug mode, but I'm curious, how can it help in those moments when something goes seriously wrong?
Yeah.
And you're facing a website emergency.
Okay, picture this. You wake up one morning and your website is completely down.
Oh, no.
Panic sets in. You're losing visitors, potential customers, maybe even revenue. This is where debug mode can be your lifeline.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me how it helps.
By enabling debug mode, you can quickly gather crucial information about what caused that crash.
Okay.
The debug log will often contain specific error messages that, point to the root of the problem, whether it's, a plugin conflict, a theme issue, a database error, or even a server-side problem.
So it's like having a black box recorder for your website.
Yes.
That reveals what happened leading up to the crash.
Exactly. It's invaluable for diagnosing those, critical moments when every second counts.
Now, remember the article mentioning that debug mode can sometimes be like a little too helpful?
Yeah, it can.
In that it displays a lot of technical information that might not be relevant to, the average user.
Right.
So how do you know what to focus on?
That's where a little bit of, knowledge and experience comes in handy.
Yeah.
But even if you're not a coding whiz, you can learn to identify the most important clues. Start by looking for error messages that are directly related to the problem that you're experiencing. For example, if your website's displaying a 500 internal server error, look for error messages in the log that mention, 500 or server error.
So use the symptoms to guide your investigation.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to, do a little research online. A lot of times you can simply just copy and paste the error message into a search engine and find helpful articles or forum discussions that explain what the message means and how to fix it.
So even if you don't understand every, technical detail, you can still use debug mode to gather valuable information and guide your troubleshooting process.
Exactly. And remember, the more you use debug mode, the more comfortable you'll become with, interpreting error messages and understanding the underlying causes of those website problems.
It's like any skill, the more you practice, the more confident you become.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of community.
Right.
If you're ever stuck, reach out to the WordPress community, consult with a developer. There's always someone out there willing to help.
Speaking of community, let's go back to Now Technology Systems, the company behind the article that inspired this deep dive. They offer a range of, WordPress support services, right?
They do, yeah. They specialize in helping businesses in Australia, but their expertise is relevant to, anyone running a WordPress website.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed by debug mode or just want a helping hand, they're definitely a resource worth checking out. I'm curious, as we're wrapping up this, this part of our deep dive, what's your biggest takeaway so far?
For me, it's the power of, proactive website management. Debug mode is not just about fixing problems. It's about understanding your website on a deeper level and, taking steps to ensure its health, performance, and security.
I totally agree. It's like shifting from, a reactive mindset to a proactive approach.
Yeah.
Where you're in control and not just waiting for things to break.
That's right, yeah.
But what about those moments when you are staring at an error message and feeling completely lost?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to our listeners who are, just starting out on their WordPress debugging journey?
That's a great question. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, when you're facing that sea of code and all that technical jargon.
It's a lot.
It is. But remember, every WordPress expert out there started somewhere.
That's true.
They were once beginners too.
Yeah, we all were.
Yeah, exactly.
So instead of seeing those error messages as like roadblocks, think of them as like clues leading you to the solution.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what are some practical tips for those, just starting to explore debug mode?
Well, first of all, don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
In a safe environment, right? Your staging site is your playground.
Right.
Break things, fix them.
Yeah.
And learn from the process.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, and take it one step at a time. Don't
Yeah.
try to tackle everything at once.
Right.
Focus on understanding the basics of debug mode and how to, interpret those error messages.
And remember, Google is your friend.
Oh, yes.
There are so many resources available online. If you encounter an error message you don't understand, just copy and paste it into a search engine.
Exactly.
Chances are someone else has already encountered the same problem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And found a solution.
Yep.
And don't hesitate to ask for help.
Right.
The WordPress community is incredibly supportive.
It is, yeah.
There are forums, online groups, even, local meetups where you can connect with other WordPress users and learn from their experiences.
Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing how generous the WordPress community is with, sharing knowledge and just helping each other out. So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive into WordPress debug mode, what's the one key message that you want them to take away?
I want them to realize that, debug mode isn't just for, developers.
Yeah.
It's a powerful resource for anyone who wants to understand
Right.
and manage
Yeah.
their WordPress website more effectively.
It's about taking control of your online presence.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about empowering yourself to, troubleshoot problems,
Yeah.
optimize performance, and ensure the security
Right.
of your website. And remember, even if you're not comfortable, diving into the code yourself,
Yeah.
understanding the basics of debug mode will help you communicate more effectively with a developer,
Right.
if you need to call in those reinforcements.
That's a great point. Yeah, you'll be able to provide, specific details and insights
Exactly.
that can help them diagnose and resolve issues more quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Instead of just saying, my website's broken,
Yeah.
you can say, hey, I enabled debug mode.
Right.
And I'm seeing this specific error message.
Yeah, that's so much more helpful.
Exactly. That level of detail can make a world of difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we're leaving you with a challenge.
Yes.
Embrace the power of WordPress debug mode.
Don't be intimidated by it.
Yeah, explore it.
Experiment with it.
Experiment.
And make it your secret weapon for building, a more robust,
Yeah.
reliable,
Reliable.
and successful
Successful.
WordPress website.
You've got this. And remember, we're all in this together. The WordPress community is here to support you every step of the way. Happy debugging.